Hello and welcome back to this lesson in this lesson series. Today we are going to talk about modifying scores. You might be wondering, why are we modifying scores? Shouldn't we play whatever that is written on the page? Now, if you remember, I mentioned in the first lesson, the opera reduction is not a final product and it's not definitive of what we should play. There are many ways that we can modify a score to suit our needs. We all have different strengths in our playing technique, our hand structure, our finger lengths, our strengths, and so on. So one thing that you need to learn through all these lessons is how to make it work for yourself. Let's look at one of the things that we need to do. Simplification. It doesn't mean that we have to simplify everything that we play. But as I said, reduction is made from someone's idea and we have to make it work for ourselves. So let's look at this Strauss aria again, which I've showed you many times in the previous lessons. Let's just look at this particular section. Now, of course, the first thing that we need to know is what is the tempo. The tempo will determine whether we can or cannot play a certain type of passages. Now this one is actually pretty fast, sehr lebhaft. So let's say 1, 2, 3, 4. So the melody will go in this speed. And so when we look at what the reduction has given us, it's actually not very practical for the pianist to go because it is such a big jump in such a short amount of time. And so we need to make something work for us. How do we make this work? For me, what I do is I'll eliminate wherever the leap happens so that my hand doesn't have to move so far to the next position. So what I do here is, especially this one, because it goes to an E flat, which is very far and very tricky for the pianist to just play and nail it right. And keep in mind, we are not just playing a piece for the piano, we are also accompanying a singer. So our attention will also have to be on the singer. So to take away as much worry as possible from what we are playing, we can then invest more attention to the singers. So what I do here is this. And you notice in my left hand, I do in a way that I can keep the rhythm going and also don't make myself suffer from needing to play that. Now this passage from the latter scene in Massenet's Werther, we have the strings playing a septuplet figurations that runs actually pretty quick. And first of all, of course, we have to know what the tempo should be. The tempo here is actually quite fast. So 1 and 2, 1, 2, 1, 2. So in order for us to play 7 notes in that beat, we might be dragging the tempo already. So what should we do? We should then keep the oral sensation of the strings playing this figuration and reduce it actually to 5 notes. This is what I do. And when you add it on with the other parts, it actually sounds pretty good. Instead of wanting to play all the notes and dragging the tempo. As you see, I can't actually catch up with the tempo if I play 7 notes in one beat. And of course, that comes down to the tempo. If the conductor actually wants a slower tempo, we can then manage to have 7 notes in that figuration. And you have to realize all that we are doing here is to make things work for the piano, for this instrument. Different instruments have different difficulties, and that's why when we are playing things that other instruments are playing, we find that sometimes things are so tricky or even impossible for us, while for the other instrument it's just a breeze. One example is tremolos on the strings. It's just a little flick of the wrist for them to repeat the notes and to do tremolos. But on the piano, we're not going to tremolo a chord this way. So for the piano, we tremolo it this way. Right? We separate into either 2 notes on the top or 2 notes below and go back and forth with a sort of rotation of our hands. We'll talk more about tremolos the next time, and definitely in Nessun Dorma. Another issue that we find is chords being too big that we have to spread it. The question is, when we hear the orchestra play those chords, do they actually play together? Should they play together? If so, then why are we separating the notes? We need to find a solution to that problem and not turn them into a pianistic piece instead of an orchestra piece. Now, this example from an aria in La Bohème by Puccini, this transition shows exactly that. We have the melody goes, but because of the notes that the orchestra is actually playing, we have this chord with this voicing, which is very nice. But however, when the pianist plays this, the pianist will have to do something like that, which actually turns it to a pianistic piece instead of an orchestra piece, because the whole orchestra actually plays the chord together. So my solution is to rewrite the voicing, but keep actually the pedal going from the E flat, just so that we have the whole sonority of the chord, and do it this way. This way we then preserve what we have, which is the chords, and also the impulse, which is that the whole orchestra actually play the chord together and not spread it like how we will play this way. We'll talk more about modifying scores the next time we meet. But for this time, I want you to go away from this lesson and be able to see the scores in a different lens. Just like what we discussed, this will actually also help you in your sight reading, believe it or not. So go away and now be able to see an orchestra reduction and to think of it in a different kind of way, to be able to look at it and say, I can actually change this, I can actually adjust this to make it work, to imitate the orchestra sound better, and also to make it playable for myself. Okay? I'll see you next time.